let's just start on the right foot. This blows, so that's the blanket. And then, yeah, what do you need to know? No.
Well, okay. We kind of have a lot to touch on. Last time I saw you, we were at the Moving Factory in Brooklyn in
We were.
February. That was like a couple weeks before this all started happening. So what have you been doing since then?
Oh. Well, the brief synopsis, I guess, is when we didn't realize that this whole thing would be a long time, I went into I have this like sort of garage studio thing, and I got drum set in there, and I got bass, and I got Pro Tools and all that. So I was like, oh, this is extra time to really work, even if it's by myself. So I did a lot of that for kind of like 2 months straight. And actually it did birth a couple riffs that have made it onto the new record. So that's pretty exciting. But then I think there was sort of like a second phase around the summer, July, where it was like, oh, this is going to not go away. And then it was kind of like, yeah. And then that surge of like, and then we kept pushing the deadline back to release. We were trying to strategize, guessing when it was going to be over. So there was just kind of dip. And then I kind of did a lot of camping and nothing.
Yeah, didn't we all? I went camping too, so.
Yeah, I went we bought a whole bunch of gear. It was great. It was great, actually. And then when we set a date for the record, we kind of revamped again as a band and started pre-production and stuff. And then now we've done the record. So, well, we've done phase 1 of the basic tracking. So.
Yeah, you guys were supposed to head back down to Australia to work with Nick Didia again at the beginning of I was like April. So how did your plans change? Like, what did you guys end up deciding to do? And what's the process been since then?
So, like I said, initially when we weren't sure when it was going to end, it was like, okay, well, maybe we'll go in July. And then I was like, okay, maybe we'll go in August. Okay, maybe we're not going. And then what happened, we stuck with Nick. We didn't really like search around for someone here. We didn't really look at that. We just figured out, and he started doing sessions via Zoom. And there's another program called Listen To, which is actually kind of really what makes it work. And so he was like, I've been using this program where I can literally hear the Pro Tools session through his Pro Tools. And so he's like, I've done a couple records. I'm doing records. I'm working. It's working. It's great. And so then we set a date. And we did a couple pre-production things with him to try to test it, which didn't go smoothly. So there was a moment where it was like, is this gonna blow? Because we, part of what we do is like having the guy in the room and having the last minute organic things happen. That's kind of where that last 5% of magic comes in, just someone getting an idea in the room when we're stalling. So we were worried that wasn't going to be there, but it ended up being totally fine. Everyone had him in our headphones. We all had a talkback mic, in the studio. And so he was there. We all had a Zoom link so we could see him. I had him on my phone, just like you. Mm-hmm. And it really, I mean, I don't want to like promote it as being awesome too much because I don't want us to like move into it. I don't want to move it forward. Yeah, but it really was pretty smooth, and it was like he was there. So, and then he had a trusted engineer that he's worked with for years, and they both worked with Brendan O'Brien for years. So he was there. So he had his sort of guy on the inside, I guess, in the room with us. So it was great. I had a great time. So, but yeah, that was the deal. Moving forward with him was just like, we're not going to bail on you. We just got to figure out how to make it happen. And luckily we did.
Yeah. It seems like everybody has kind of found ways to be productive and be efficient without having to do what we did before. So it's like, even when this does end, like our band's going to continue to do albums through Zoom because it might be more cost effective than doing it in a studio. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah, it is. I think what it would allow you to work with guys who don't live near you. you know.
Yeah, you don't have to fly what like a 25-hour flight to get down there.
Yeah, and you got to have a couple days to adjust, you know. I still would do that because that particular location was a retreat paradise. I mean, that was just that you can't replace. I mean, Henson does a good job when you're there. It's very much like you totally forget you're in like the worst part of Hollywood. and especially now, like the worst part of Hollywood just got worse because now there's no businesses open, and it's just, it kind of looks like the beginning scene in like, what is that, like 27 days later or something, like a zombie. It's like an apocalypse.
The Walking Dead or something like that.
Yeah, I'm serious. There's trash. There's grosser things than trash, if you know what I mean. And like it's really bad. And so we're right there, and then you go into Henson, and it's all locked out. You've got some, you know, it is a nice bubble, but man, being 20 minutes from a beach in, you know, southeastern Australia is pretty sweet.
Yeah. Did you go swimming while you were down there at all?
Yeah. And the water there is like, you know, sort of Caribbean blue. It was just amazing. I didn't know that when I went. I thought it would be more, I don't know what I thought, but I was like very surprised.
So you guys did a virtual live stream show at the Viper Room a couple months ago. I think that was July. So how was that experience playing to literally just cameras and not an audience?
It still felt like an audience, knowing everyone's watching. You know, it still was like, hey, this is how it's going, is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
So I had that live feel. Excuse me, but it was like, you know, but then it was like we've done music videos, so it was sort of like a mix of the two. I think also that everything had been shut down, and the fact that we got to do this, we were excited about it. It was just, we hadn't really performed, and we got to play a few new songs. Honestly, it was pretty rejuvenating. We were pretty pumped. That everybody was pumped. Everybody in our little organization was like, they're like, did you guys get better? And we're like, I don't know, maybe, you know. So it was pretty rejuvenating.
That's good. So, well, when I saw you guys in February, you did play 2 new songs that night. I think one of them was called The Wire, and we made a joke about saying, rename it Loudwire. But
oh yeah,
are any of those new songs, are they going to end up on the new release?
I think The Wire has an extremely strong chance of making it on the release. There's going to be a debate once we finish everything about whether or not we do the full lot that we have, or we do maybe half of it, and then who knows what happens with the other half. I don't know. You know, there's no need anymore to put out filler. So we're kind of the guys who are just like, so why ever put out filler then? I mean, I love the full album idea, but I'm also like, yeah, I mean, if we could wait, one thing I do have faith in us is we're not the quickest songwriters, but if we believe in an idea, we'll get it to awesome. We will, or, you know, what we consider to be great. So if something's really good, but it's just not quite there, we're like, well, why put it out? So there's going to be a debate, I think, but The Wire's got a real strong chance.
I remember really liking that one. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that's going to be that's not going to be left on the cutting room floor, I don't think.
Cool. So how has the songwriting process been different? I don't know previously how you guys would write. Like, what was your process previously before the pandemic versus what it has been now?
You know, it hasn't changed too much. It's actually what works well with us. It might be, you know, our lifestyles a little bit. We all kind of live in different corners of Los Angeles, but the inspiration stage of it is usually done separately. I will just sit for, you know, and I know Justin does this too, and Mark is the same. We'll kind of sit on our lonesome and wait till we came up with something that feel is good enough to show to the other guys, you know, because that's like your first audience. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have to, I always want to bring the best game forward. So I don't bring as many things forward, but I try to hit a home run every time if I can. So it usually starts distant. It's sort of the opposite of what I always thought being in a band would be. I always thought it would be like, you know, we jam for 10 hours and then cut up the 2 parts that are good. But we don't really do that. We come at it from the other way. We when we get together, we already have 5 or 6 or maybe 2 strong riffs, strong starts, a chorus idea, and we play that through, and then in that setting, some of that band synergy will birth like the finishing answer or the next part, you know, arrange it right. So that part really hasn't changed. I think we've gotten better at our when the green light is, you know, quicker. We've gotten quicker at that. And even as individuals too, like I used to submit really early on, I would submit more riffs that just weren't as good. You know, they had too many notes or something, you know. Now I kind of have a better meter of like, okay, I know when I can send this off and the guys are like, oh, this is good.
Yeah, a lot of bands, they have a tendency to do most of their writing on the road. So I'm sure a lot of those bands right now are probably kind of yearning for that feeling, like not only to be able to play a live show, but just to be able to like have that magic again. So I guess you guys are lucky that your situation was never really road based, because you're able to kind of just do it the way you always have.
Yeah, because it's although we did take advantage of that once we got out of the opening slots and we started to have longer sound checks, and we had the looming record hanging overhead. We were pretty diligent about that. Was like part of what was going on, like the road, especially not so much Alter Bridge because there wasn't that much time on that, but like by the time you saw us, the process was like sound check as quick as we could and then take up the rest of the sound check working ideas, you know, and then sell merch and then do the show and all that stuff. So it's kind of, you know, rinse and repeat every night. But yeah, it would be sort of starving if that would have been our scenario. I mean, every band does it differently, and that's kind of what I think is so cool.
Yeah. Well, so you guys, I mean, it's obvious that your influences are classic rock. I play you guys all the time now to my friends who are like into AC/DC and Aerosmith and everybody, and they love you guys. So it's for people who are into that old sound. There's not a ton of that coming out now, at least not that's getting picked up on. I mean, you guys had the #1 rock song, that being Signs.
Yeah.
That was a huge deal. But do you guys think that you're going to kind of like, is that your sound, or do you see it kind of evolving at all and changing?
Well, I don't think it's evolved terribly for this next record, but I do know everybody, especially I know everybody's got other influences, you know. We sort of came together on that classic rock thing as a cover band, and there just aren't that many people. That's our connection, you know. There aren't that many people who play those things passionately. It's kind of a joke to other musicians, you know. So it's just a natural starting point. And I feel like I'm expressing myself the most when I'm playing that way. But there's a lot of pop song influences in everybody's ear. I know that. So who knows, you know? I wouldn't say anything super closed off, you know? Because we do like we do have this sort of a great song is a great song is a great song mentality. I mean, I don't want to turn around and give you guys, one thing I don't want to be is one of those bands where like, it's like you look at us and it's guitar, bass, and drums, but all you hear is like synths. You know, that would be not the type of evolution I'd be looking forward to.
Yeah, if Dirty Honey went synth, I don't know what I would do, because I'm so excited to like see what you guys end up putting out. But
yeah, I think you'll hear a similar sound coming from us for a long time, because I think we figured out how to write good songs in it. A lot of guys that we would meet are just fans of this style, would sort of focus on the guitar playing of it and like the bluesiness of it, and that stuff's fun to jam. And even as a player, you can kind of get lost in that. And you just think, yeah, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it is, but it's just sort of just prattling on a little bit, you know? And we figured out how to mix, you know, our Tom Petty influence, our, you know, heck, like Mumford and Sons influence or something, you know, just like a concise song with a, you know, or Mark likes U2, you know, those melodies aren't bluesy. And so I think we managed to pull that in. It's that You Shook Me All Night Long kind of recipe, you know, where it's still rock and roll, but anyone likes that song.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's hard to pigeonhole you guys. Like, you know, there's other bands that are doing a similar style to what you guys have, but you can pick maybe one band to pin them up against. And with you guys, you can't really do that. Like it's vintage and it's like nostalgic for people who like the old sound, but it's original at the same time. So that is like a, you know, like I think that's what you guys like really have going for you is the originality mostly.
Well, I appreciate that.
Cool, you know, so.
I remember when we were first, like we were ready to release the first EP, and I'm always, like Mark and I are sort of opposite. He's like, we're the greatest ever. And, you know, he was like that when we were like nobody. It was so funny. He was like, we're the best band. He'd just tell anybody anything. He'd be like, we're the best band in Los Angeles, you know. And I'd be like, he's dumb as him. But, you know, and I was like, listening to our EP over and over again before it was coming out, and I had these like last minute panics. I'm like, oh man, what is this? You know what I mean? Like I couldn't pigeonhole it, and so for a minute I was like, is anyone gonna like it? They'll just be like, what did you do here? You know? And then I realized, looking back, that's if you have that panic, you're in a good spot because you've made something that you can't just say, oh well, that's this, you know. And I think there's a comfort in doing that, but then there's a ceiling, you know.
Yeah. There's definitely a diverse crowd at your show too. I saw people younger than me. I saw people older than my dad. I was like, wow, there's like a nice, and it was sold out too. You guys almost sold out that entire headlining tour that you did.
That was such a, you know, that was such a confidence boosting run. I mean, you know, it's so funny. You go, what could go wrong? And then you're like, oh, wait, the world could stop. What?
Yeah. You guys were, you know, there was a lot of hype happening. You guys were on a freaking roll. You had a couple of like those radio station festivals coming up in the spring and everything.
It was going to be fun. Yeah. It's going to be a heck of a year. And that run sold out as it went, which was really exciting. It was like 2 and 3 shows out. We just watched the numbers rise as we approached that show. So it really got like, you know, snowballed, you know.
So tell me about this next album. Like, I know you said you're not sure yet if it's gonna, I guess it's not gonna be like either it's the battle between EP versus album. And what's the timeline if you got one?
Well, it won't be this year. I can tell you that. And, you know, hopefully not too far into next year. That's about as much as I can say because there's so many outside factors. If we get into February, March, and it's still not out, and then there's no end to the quarantine or whatever. Is this still quarantine or is it just hell now? I can't. It
seems like we're gonna go back into quarantine soon. That's what I'm thinking. So
yeah. So, you know, because what we like to do is release everything and kind of hit everything at once, you know. And with quarantine, it lops off like 3 of those branches, and then it's just okay. We can put it on the radio, which is obviously great. I mean, Greta just did it, and that song's going up the chart. But we'll just see. I don't know. You know, we can't stay out of the game too long, so it'll be next year for sure. It won't be this year.
Okay. Cool. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining.
And try to enjoy the rest of whatever this is.
Oh, you too. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys got going on. So hopefully we'll see you soon. All right. Take care.
All right.